I did not sleep, which, for a goat, is a pretty big deal. Usually, I can nod off standing up while chewing, or even when a rooster is personally screaming at me. But that night, Gravel's End just wouldn't let me rest. The ground beneath my hooves kept vibrating, not a violent shake, just this deep, repeating sigh. It felt like the town itself was thinking. And I knew it was, because the streetlights were blinking in a pattern that looked suspiciously like punctuation. As dawn broke, I went to the water trough to get my head straight. I leaned over, expecting to see my usual reflection, dignified snout, a very reliable beard, and eyes that had seen far too much municipal nonsense for one lifetime. But instead, my reflection was late. It lagged. I'd move my head, and the reflection would follow a whole half-second later. I froze. It froze, then my reflection smiled at me. I want to be clear, I do not smile voluntarily. It's not in my contract. I backed away from that trough, my heart hammering against my ribs, and quickly made a note in my charcoal journal, Town Anomaly number 47, Reflections Now of Opinions. As if it was listening, the river nearby cleared its throat. You're seeing the layers now, it gurgled. I asked it how to stop. You don't, the river replied. You cataloged. I have to say, I did not like that answer one bit. Things only got weirder from there. By mid-morning, a letter arrived on my desk. It wasn't delivered by anyone. It just sort of appeared. Folded perfectly, sealed with a wax that smelled like pine trees and deep, lingering regret. The subject line read, Mayoral Effectiveness, Probationary. It started off by praising my initiative, which was nice, but then it listed some concerns. Apparently, I was guilty of excessive questioning, insufficient reverence for infrastructure, and my personal favorite, unauthorized disruption of temporal avian agreements. Whatever that means. But the final line was the one that really got me. Please remember you were elected, not invited. So I did the only logical thing. I ate the letter. It did not help. That evening, I was summoned to the library by Professor Hootsworth. The owls had rearranged the shelves again, this time into a giant spiral that actually hurt my eyes to look at. We need to correct something, Hootsworth said, his voice unusually gentle. He showed me a book. Its title was The Mayors of Gravel's End. And there I was listed right in the pages. But the description of me was completely wrong. It said I was cautious, indecisive, easily guided. That's not me, I stated, trying to keep my voice steady. It will be, Hootsworth replied softly. They were trying to rewrite my story, to update my character profile while I was still living it. When I resisted, the owls didn't get angry. They just looked confused, like librarians who'd found a book that refused to be put in a category. You're drifting, one of them whispered. That was my cue, I ran. And just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, Chadwick Hornwell returned. But he wasn't just the same old Chadwick. He came back with branding. Slogans started appearing overnight, plastered all over town. Stronger horns. Simpler days. And a goat you can trust again. He'd learned to speak in absolutes, and honestly, it was working. The sheep absolutely adored him. The dogs liked his confidence. Even the pigeons, our resident temporal experts, found him time-adjacent. He announced he was running for permanent mayor, a position that literally did not exist until he said it with enough confidence to make it real. When I confronted him, he just laughed. You think you're running this town? He sneered. You're just a phase it goes through before it decides what it really wants. And as he said it, I saw the streets behind him subtly rearrange themselves, as if they were leaning in to listen. Then the memories started to go. Animals began forgetting things. Not the big, important stuff, but small, very specific details. The town baker forgot what flour was, but he still remembered exactly how to knead dough. The dogs forgot why they were supposed to enforce the laws, but they remembered exactly how to enforce them. The sheep completely forgot who invented wool coin, but they definitely remembered being rich from it. The town wasn't broken, it was optimizing itself. It was editing out the messy parts. When I asked the archive for some clarification, it just produced a brand new plaque that read, Memory is a resource, waste is discouraged. It was terrifyingly efficient. I knew I had to dig deeper. I went down into the archive, past the rooms that refused to stay in one place, into the very foundations of the town. And there, I found a door made of salad horn. Behind it sat another goat. He was older, thinner, but he was still alive. He introduced himself as Bartholomew P. Hoofington. "I was you," he said, his voice raspy. "Before you." He explained the whole twisted system. Gravels end cycles through caretakers. Observers dot mayors. Goats who notice too much. Whenever the town gets unstable, it elevates a goat like me, lets them fix a few things, and then replaces them before they can change the wrong parts. "So what happens to you?" I asked, dreading the answer. He just gestured to himself, sitting alone in that dusty room. "Maintenance," he said. I didn't stick around. I left before I could be shoved next to him. That night, the town finally spoke to me directly. The ground didn't shake or rumble. It just opened up a little, enough for a voice to rise from the earth. "You are asking the wrong questions," it said. The voice was ancient and calm and utterly without emotion. I asked what the right questions were. There was a long pause. "That depends," the town finally said, "on whether you wish to continue being a goat." The silence that followed was the most absolute, deafening silence I have ever experienced. The next morning, the town was covered in election banners. Chadwick's smug face was everywhere on walls, on flags. It was even projected onto the moon for a few minutes before the pigeons corrected the timeline. The river was roaring now. The roads twitched like nervous muscles. The archive was updating its records every few minutes. And that's when I finally understood. This town wasn't afraid of chaos. It was afraid of change that remembered itself. It didn't want progress. It wanted a reset button. So I climbed the hill one last time, the same hill where this all started, and I looked out over Gravel's End. But this time, for the very first time, the town looked back. Not at me. It looked through me, as if I was just a temporary variable in a much larger equation. I took out my journal and made one final note. If the town is alive, then so is resistance. And as I wrote the words, the ground behind me cracked. It wasn't a crack of anger. It was a crack of anticipation. The story wasn't over. It was just beginning. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this trip into the weird world of Gravel's End, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. See you in the next one.